How's everyone doing out there? Good. Thank you for coming out. I'm slightly sick and quite jet lagged, so I'm going to do my best for you between those two unfortunate situations. But the jet lag, okay. All right. I'll have a little play first. much. Just a little blues improvisation there, which is what I do, actually. So, so what do you want to know? Everything. Oh, well, we've got, it only takes a couple hours to learn. But feel free to ask questions, because, it's really hard to fit everything into an hour or two, so we can, we'll do questions. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you have a jet lag, but you're from the UK. Where did you come from now? What was your last destination?
Oh, I was in Dallas, Texas, at the weekend, yeah. So we just flew in and got to Holland on Tuesday. So, yeah. But I live in Florida in these days. So for the past nearly 10 years I've been in Florida. So we went to Dallas for a show and then got on the plane straight from there to Europe, So, but that's still always going somewhere, and that's what we have to do in order to get to do this all the time, which is I very lucky, In fact, that's a good place to start with. Something to keep in mind is I realize everybody has lots of different responsibilities in their life, and jobs and families and things like that. I've managed to be lucky enough to just kind of indulge myself on the guitar for 34 years now, and 33 years of doing concerts. So that's the process has been my whole life, and I've been lucky enough to do it the whole time, and avoid the other things that I didn't want to do. So I just get to play guitar, So keep that in mind, because when I say like, oh, this is simple or whatever, it is after 30 years, So, yeah, so I always like to point that out. I've given my life to this thing, and vice versa. It's always what I've done. So, somebody else had a question to go. Yeah.
You just said just an improvisation you just threw out then.
Yeah.
How much is improvised and how much is repeatable?
Right. Good. That's an excellent question. I couldn't play any of that again the same. I don't even remember exactly what I did, if you know what I mean. It's
When you go on stage tomorrow,
yeah.
you play a set.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's totally improvised.
Well, it depends on your definition of improvised. So,
if you recorded it twice,
yes.
How much would it match up?
Not at all.
Good.
Well, so again, it depends where, in fact, we would start the definition of improvised, because obviously you could make an argument. This is very philosophical stuff we're already off to here in this discussion. You could make an argument that there's no such thing as pure improvisation, because everything is based upon previous knowledge,
It's all Lego.
It is. So I think of it more as it's conversational, really. Playing blues guitar, how I play it and how my heroes played it, is a language. So if you think of it as a language, I have the words, I know the grammar and the syntax, the sentence structure. So yeah, you're going to use the same words quite often to get your point across. But if you were to then go back and try and have exactly the same conversation, you could have a conversation about the same subject tomorrow, but it's going to come out, and you may even get to the same point you were trying to make, but to get there, you'll use a completely different set of words. So that's the best way I can describe it. I have a vocabulary that I've developed and that I work from. I work from the vocabulary. And of course, that includes multiple elements. So there's both the ideas in your mind of what you hear when you play, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to play what I hear in the moment. But then there's also just things like muscle memory, and it all kind of comes together to build a way to express what you're trying to say via the instrument. So yeah, language is the best way to think of it. You're trying to express yourself through the instrument, and you know, at this point, I kind of work within the vocabulary that I have because that's what I hear. You know, I'm not like trying to play stuff that I can't think of and failing to do that, if you know what I mean. Like I'm at a point I've been playing for so long and so much that I sound how I sound with my given vocabulary because that's how I want to sound. So yeah.
I think I've heard you say you can't play sessions for other sorts of music.
No, I'm a horrible session player. So I'll tell you the story quickly. Actually, I just moved to London. I was like 18, 19, I think. And I was in a couple of blues bands. And I got put forth for like a pop music session. Another guitar player said, "Oh man, you're a good player. You should, I've got this producer, he's looking for some guitar playing on this pop song." So he put me forward and I went to the studio of this producer, and it was, I can't remember what it was, it's a long time ago, but it was like some kind of like arpeggio of a D chord. And I was playing it, and I was obviously doing something like, you know, like putting some kind of little trill, and I wasn't aware of it. And he goes, "Yeah, that's great, man. Can you just not do that little?" And I'm like, "What?" You know, because I was just making what I was playing sound best to me, you know. And yeah, just don't do that little thing. Okay. And I couldn't get. And he takes the guitar and he goes, "No, more like this." And I said, "Listen, man, I don't want to waste your time. I don't think I'm the guy for this job." So he says, "You know what, I appreciate you saying that." So we went downstairs, we had a coffee, and we talked about it. I walked out of there going, "Okay, I know now that I'm just have to be me, you know, and the next time somebody calls me to play on their song, it will be because they want it to sound like me on it, you know." And I made that decision like age 19, and I've been poorer because of it, but maybe happier, you know. And because it turns out I'm not good at it because I don't have that. My brain doesn't work like that. So I only play well if I can just whatever comes to mind at that given moment. So that's how I play, you know. It's like I just have to be there with it, and that's become what I do, you know, for better or for worse. So. Yeah, horrible session guitarist. I'm not good at playing on demand. I'm not good at playing fixed parts, you know. I did a few years ago, I got asked to do a thing. It was 3 nights in a row with the couple of guys from the Allman Brothers, and I was asked to play one of the guitars with a guy called Scott Sherrard, who's also Greg Allman's guitar player, and he was doing this thing. We had to learn I had to learn the first 3 Allman Brothers records in their entirety, and each night we played one of the records in full. You know, I like the Allman Brothers kind of casually, but I'm not really deeply involved in their music, and they weren't one of my bands. So I knew some of the stuff of the Allman Brothers, but I'd never learned it, and I had to learn all those dual guitar parts, you know, like the harmonies. And I was like immediately regretting saying yes to this because I hadn't had to learn anybody else's music other than my own for 20 years. You know, I used to play in other people's bands, but then you start doing your own stuff, and then I write my songs and I play my music. And if it's not that, then I'm playing blues with other people that know the vocabulary and the tradition and the language, and then we can just get together and play. So yeah, it's they're just 2 different skills, you know. And it's interesting in this day and age. I always struggle with things like social media and things of how, like, I don't really have anything to say in 1 minute on Instagram, you know. Like, there's a lot of the guitarists, a lot of great players, but they'll do like 100 takes of like a hot solo that they figured out, and then they put that on Instagram. It's like impressive, but I don't know what that it means. So like, my thing is over the course of 90 minutes, like you'll get tomorrow. That's what I do, is contained within an hour or 2 hours of playing. So I don't have like those hot guitar shop chops, like the kid in there shredding. But I can take you on a musical journey over the course of several songs, all of different feels and colors and things like that. So it's more like that, you know. So, and just to add to the final thought to that idea of being a session player as well, the less you do something, you know, the more you lose it. So the more specialist you become as a player, the harder it becomes to do other stuff as well. You know, and that's a choice you make. It's something I'm happy about. I don't want to be a jack of all trades. You know, I just want to be me. So I'm happy to let some of that go and fall away over the years to get it down to just the essence. And that's more what I'm interested in these days as well as a player, is the essence of myself. All my heroes, all my favorite guys, and we can talk about those guys in a minute. They're just themselves, you know, and that's why we love them. They all, you know B.B. King in 2 seconds, you know Hendrix, you know Stevie Ray, you know Albert King, Albert Collins, and they're singular. You know, they don't play everything the best. They are themselves the best. So that's the concept there. So, but we'll talk about some of those guys. But anybody else have another question I can get into? Is that up the back there? Yeah, man.
I'll come a little closer, just in case.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, I might speak for some more people, but I've been playing for like a year or 3 now.
Yeah.
I've been really stuck in like this box of playing solos, and I had a guitar teacher that kind of never told me any chords.
Yeah.
So like I can play a really good solo and like and like improvisation,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm so stuck trying to learn chords and getting out of like boxes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Have you ever experienced that, and any tips on how to get out of that
Yeah.
box?
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously that's a very long lesson in itself. So I'll try and give you a succinct conceptual thing, but the most important thing is to not think of lead and chords as separate things. They're not. And what happens on the guitar is we all tend to start like, we learn chords like, and then we go, and they're not connected, you know, like you think of chords as being like a fixed, just you think of it as a fingering. But you have to start thinking of what's inside the chords and know what the notes are. So if you're a piano player, you've only got one of each key, of each note. So then it becomes obvious that if you're playing a chord, you're playing those notes. And if you're playing a melody, you're playing, well, probably a lot of those notes as well, but just one after another rather than all at the same time. Excuse me. And that seems to be kind of an alien concept of guitar, because you'll learn like chord shapes that are kind of locked, you know, like not movable. And then you'll play a solo with the pentatonic. So that's what you've got to start thinking of the lead and the rhythm as being the same notes, but either played at the same time or one after another. And then you can start to go, so this is just, we'll go to key A. It's like, well, am I playing chords or am I playing lead? Well, I'm doing both, because when I play over the 4 chord, the D, I'm playing. I'm actually playing the notes out of the D7th chord, because that's the chord. So, forgive me, but for saying all this, but it's actually that simple, but it's a hard concept to get your head around.
Yeah, so I basically have to find the notes in the chord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's about 10 different ways you can look at it, and it's however it works for you. But like if you take that as a basic 7th chord, it's a D7th, and then you look at where the notes are in relation to, perhaps you already know, the minor pentatonic. Well, that's in the minor pentatonic. That's in the minor pentatonic. That's in the minor pentatonic. So it's then you're like, well, what you find out is you really don't have to change like one note, and you're playing the chord. So, for example, the minor pentatonic. If you change the 7th to the 6th, when you're playing over the 4 chord, you're playing the major third of the 4 in D. That's changing one note. And it could be as simple as that, but always the elephant in the room at these things, as the saying goes, though, is you got to be able to hear it. Like, because I do so many of these things, and everybody's trying to play guitar with all their other senses. You know, they're reading tablature, they're looking at the neck, they've learned where to put their fingers, they're thinking about shapes in their hand, and they're not using their ear. So ultimately, the only way to get there and tie it all together is by knowing what it sounds like. So, I mean, like I say, that's a massive lesson, and there's a few different ways you can learn it, you know, but you've got to like explode the chords out so that they're not like a fixed shape. So again, that's a D7th, but they're all D. I'm playing like 2 notes of a D7th chord. So I might play something like that on the 4. Now, if you play it like, well, I'm actually just playing the notes out of a regular D7th chord, but instead of going, I'm going, and now you've got like a lick out of the chord, but it's just the notes of the chord. Same on the 5. Am I playing chords or am I playing solos? And again, there's a lot of different ways to get that in your playing, but mainly you've got to think about chords being open to movement. You've got to get used to hearing the sounds. Like, I know what a note is going to sound like when I play it because I've done it so many times, you know, and you've got to train your ear. So I know, you know, I know that the third of the 4 chord sounds like, so on and so on. And then the other way to do it, so there isn't a right way, these are all ways you can do it, will be to learn the modes so that you know exactly the scale that goes over any given chord. You have to learn them all. I mean, learn what's useful to you. Obviously, I understand how the modes work, and it doesn't matter if you don't, it's useful if you do. I'm not necessarily about to peel off some kind of Phrygian lick, because it's not something that's a sound that's useful to me or a sound that lives in my head. But for blues, you probably want to learn the Mixolydian scale. For each chord in the blues. So then when it goes to the next chord, and the 5. That's just the scale of a 7th chord, which is the blues, you know? And so if you know, again, I call it a scale because it is a scale, but more important than it being a scale is the sound of the Mixolydian. You want to know what that sounds like so that you can improvise with those sounds, which are the notes that the chords of the blues are built on. And then I treat each chord as its own change to play those. So the final bit of this, and as for some of you here, I'm sure this is like, if you're not much up on theory, this is probably complex ideas, but you know, it's the real answer to the question. So just on a 12-bar blues, on the 1 chord, I might play minor pentatonic or blues scale, and I might play the major pentatonic, and the minor pentatonic blues scale, and the Mixolydian. And the Mixolydian is just do, re, mi, major scale, but with a flat 7th. And then for the 4 chord, I'll play the Mixolydian of D. I'll play the major pentatonic of D, but not the minor pentatonic. And then the 5 chord, I'll play the minor pentatonic of the 5 chord, E minor. But it's only one note different than the A minor pentatonic. So you don't have to change that one note. You change in the key of A, the C to a B, and you're now playing the E minor pentatonic. And then I'll also play the E Mixolydian and the E major pentatonic. Anyway, that's a massive amount of information, obviously, but that's the real answer to the question. I would recommend buying my Playing the Changes course on TrueFire, because that's a whole interactive DVD about that. And we made the whole thing, but it's like probably 8 hours of video to work your way through it, because I can't just implant it in your head. But the biggest takeaway is you got to learn the sounds and look for the chords. I'll show the simple version to forget about all the scales. I'm going to play you a 12-bar blues, but with just 3 or 4 notes, not moving around on the neck or anything, and try and find the changes in the chords. So this would be something like. So that's like once around the progression. I'm only using 4 notes, 3 or 4 notes out of the 5-note pentatonic, but with bending and manipulating the notes, I'm leading your ear to the changes in the simplest possible way. That's how you start doing it. So, you know, and then you just maybe would take that up an octave and. So on and so on. That's how the guys who invented this kind of music played, because they were inventing it. So they didn't have everybody that came before them. We're lucky, it's easy for us. By the way, can we turn these lights down just a tiny bit? Because I am melting up here. It's so incredibly hot. And I can't, also I'm squinting and I don't want to have to put my sunglasses on, so I'd rather be in the dark slightly than sweating and squinting. Thank you. That's better. These guys, you listen to B.B. King, you listen to Albert King, there's a simplicity but a huge sophistication because they're playing like a voice, you know? They're playing like a vocal. And when somebody sings, they don't go, like all the time. That would sound ridiculous. They sing you a song, and so like I can go back and forth between the idea in my mind. And make the changes. If you can sing it, you can play it. And if you can't sing it, or think it at least, and try and vocalize it, you're not going to be able to play it. For this kind of music, for improvising this. So you should listen to the original players, because they will inform your ear of this. You can't start at Stevie Ray or Robin Ford and just, well, you can learn all the licks that they played, but you'll only be like, learning licks is like having a phrase book when you go on holiday to a foreign country, and it can tell you how to order a coffee or a beer, or, and you can go, okay, I'll look that up, and it gives you the sentence, but you don't know how to speak the language, right? You're just reciting some words. That's what licks are. And that works fine to a point, but if you really want to be great, you have to study the language, and that means listening to the people that invented it in the first place, when they didn't have anybody. It's so easy for us now. We have all these great records from all these great artists. All you got to do is listen. It's all there. It's all there. They invented it for us. We just have to pay attention and play it, Whereas until B.B. King, there's T-Bone Walker before B.B. and he sounded like really beautiful playing, but kind of straightforward. And then B.B. comes along, it's like, there wasn't a thing on the guitar before it. Like nobody had played like that. So especially this music, the context is really, really important of how you think about the music, because it's very recent. It's been invented for us in the last 100 years. There was only electric guitars the first track came out in 1954. I'm sure there's some people in the room here that are older than the Fender guitar. That's not like a big stretch to have been born. I got lots of friends who were born when there was no electric guitars, So it's within our lifetimes is what I mean by that, So it's the context of that is important. So people started playing these things way simpler, and all the knowledge has been built up. But if you want to start playing this thing, you have to start simpler, because nobody who can play well, this is a hard concept to explain, but unless you can play something simple really well, adding more complexity to it, adding more notes, more scales, if you can't just go, or even in the right key, but they're like simple things, right? But if you can't do them really well, putting more notes, learning more scales, it's not going to make it better. It's just going to make it more complicated, and that's So hopefully that concept makes sense. You have to be able to play. Even like people are real casual about just like you learn just a blues dunta in E. But can you play it? How well can you play that? Well, there's no real limit to how well, what are the details you can get into it, the dynamics, the tone, the little rhythmic syncopations. the simple, yeah, but it's also hard to do something simple really well. That's the entire point here. Devil is in the details, is the saying, you know. So yeah, there you go. That's a long answer to your question,
I'm
but
gonna give that a shot.
yeah. For if you do it every day for 30 years, you'll be fine.
Well, if I must.
Yeah. Hey, it's fun, right?
It is. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, mate.
Yeah, I have a question. Because you also know a lot of theory. Also, you know.
Yeah, not that much actually, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, all the
It's-
scales you're playing on every
Sh-
chord, and you know if you play a 6 or 7.
Yes.
To what extent do you think that's necessary to be able to play with you?
It's not. I only know it because I learned the sounds. So you could do it without knowing the name. But what is it, Shakespeare? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. You know, it's like it's just names for things. Mostly I learn it to explain it to you guys. Not specifically you guys, but to other people, you know.
But you didn't learn it because you thought it would be useful for your own playing.
No, I tried to play music, and if there was a sound I was looking for. In fact, quite often, Johnny, my organ player, is maybe around somewhere or not, I would be learning the sound, and I'd say to Johnny, because it does have more of a theory brain than me. What's that called? Do you see what I mean? So the only theory or technique I have, I learned to play an idea in my mind. It's never been the other way around. And in fact, I say this quite often, and I don't want people to misinterpret it, but I don't feel like I've ever practiced. I've never gone. I never did that. I've just picked up the guitar and tried to get the sounds of the music I like out of it. And so I play, or I just play the guitar, and eventually you're looking for a sound, and you're like, oh, that's that sound. Like there's one I use quite a lot now, and I can never remember what it's called. I think I can't remember, but it's, you know, the like kind of Arabian. Sound.
Harmonic minor.
Well, it's not the harmonic
No?
minor. It's a mode of the harmonic minor,
Yeah.
and so it's like the
Phrygian dominant.
Phrygian dominant,
Yeah.
something. But here's the point. I don't know. In fact, I can't play you so just to show it's like it sounds like a lot of theory. I can't play you a harmonic minor if you say play the harmonic minor, but I might play sounds from within it because I know the sequence of notes. So to say it's not that important at all. What's important is your ear and being able to have an idea and find it in the instrument, and whatever way you get around it is whatever works. You know, it's like it's art. It's not. It's funny because I love science and stuff like that, but it is, and there is an element of science and logic and maths to it. But I'm not very good at maths, but I'm good at logic, and there's a logic to the guitar, and once you crack it, then it's easy. It's got to make sense to you, you know what I mean? And so then it doesn't matter what you call it. That's really only useful for talking to other people about it, because other than that, it's just sounds, you know. And I'm not using that many different. I'm not a jazz player where they can perfectly summon the scale and alter it over every single chord that they're on. I'm using like the same three things 90% of the time. And this is where also the whole idea of scales falls apart and comes back to your ears, because if in the key of A you take all the scales that I'm using on all three chords of the blues and you play all the notes, then you're going to have like this, and then between passing tones. Well, I almost played all 12 notes that you have. There's only 12 notes. and other than like the major seventh, there's not many major sevenths on my gig, you know. It's so I but that one you use like. That's using the major seventh, but as a passing note. So I'm literally playing all 12 notes at some point that there is. So then the scales don't tell you, they don't give you any music. They just give you a map of choices. So it's still your ears. So it doesn't matter if you might not know any theory at all, but it's the sounds. It's just, it makes it easier to understand what you know if you know some stuff. But I am certainly not some great Jacob Collier theory level type thing. That's for sure. So I don't read music. I don't write music. I have to really think about the order of the notes on a thing. It's just not my world. It's all it is. So yeah. Oh, okay. I'm going over here for a second. Yeah.
Hi Matt. How do you?
Oh, thank you.
Sure. From your influences.
Yeah.
What do you take and combine with yourself to push in new music?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one of the hardest things, and it was what I was always the most interested in. And I like. Cheers, by the way. I'm sure this will help my cold get better. Oh, this Winkles is a good one, right?
I saw that one.
How can you resist? Yeah. So my thing was always I wanted to have my sound, but also sort of pay reference to my heroes. I like that about guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's like he sounded like Stevie Ray Vaughan, but he also you could hear like he was doing some Hendrix and some Albert King, some Lonnie Mac. So I kind of like that because I love these are the people that I love and I want to celebrate them. You know what I mean? Like in my music. So that's how I see it. What I did was I never really learned anything exactly. So I would maybe just kind of grab onto like the first line of a solo. And this is to say I learned from actually tape cassette copies of my dad's vinyl records. So I taped the vinyl records. My dad does still, but when I was a kid, he lived in America. So I would go there in the summer, tape his blues records onto cassette tape, bring them home and spend the rest of the year rewinding the tape and trying to figure it out. No internet, nothing, just records to listen to. That's how I learned to play. So I never learned anything exactly, nor was I interested. There's about probably half a dozen exact licks that I ever learned. And they're when they're more complicated ones rather than the simple stuff. So I'd listen to BB and I'd just play along and try and get the BB King vibe and feel and the sounds of it. So I didn't even know at the time, but BB's using a lot of Mixolydian or major pentatonic. So let's get a key of G. You know, like it's BB King-ish thing, but it's not actually a BB King lick that I ever got from him. What you do is you try and get like what makes their sound a thing. In BB King's case, it's that sweet sound. And just trying to get the vibe, or like Albert Collins. It's a different tone already. I instantly go to like, I want to do, and then it's like, you know, but that's not an Albert Collins lick specifically from anything. It's like, what's going on that makes him sound so good? It's that kind of, it's the energy, it's the approach, it's the tone, and the basic harmonic content. So in the case of Albert Collins, his guitar was actually tuned to F minor chords, so he's tuned up a semitone, and these strings are up another minor third. So So what that means, he's tuning F minor, but it gives him the major sixth sound all the time. So he's playing like the sixth instead of the seventh, and it gives it. It gives it a sound, so it's like, oh, the sixth kind of sound. Albert King, bends, huge bends. So it's like features is the word, features. What are the features of these guys? And then you can just go, okay, I like how he does that, and I like how he does that, and you mash it all together, and eventually it comes out sounding like you. So yeah, I never learned exact licks. I just sort of jammed with the records and tried to pick out the features and the vibe and the tone, and put it together like that, and eventually, hopefully, it comes out. With regards to like transcribing stuff, like jazz musicians like to transcribe exact solos, I messed around a little bit with that, more on things that were more complicated, of trying to learn something exactly to understand it, more than to be able to play it on a gig, you know, or quote it. Like, I don't play like Eric Johnson at all, but I do love his playing. And so there's a song of his called Lonely in the Night on his Venus Isle record, and there was this one guitar lick in the outro solo, and I was like, man, what is going on there? So I did figure the whole thing out. It's just like one bar long, but he does it's a big arpeggio from low F to high F. Excuse me. But he does it real quick, you know, it does woo. And I thought, okay, I want to know how to do that. I want to know how he's getting from A to B so quickly. So I learned it, but then I did use it kind of in one of my songs, but my song was a shuffle blues. So I swung it, and then you get... So I played in triplets, you know? So I took an exact lick, but then I changed it, the phrasing of it, you know? By the way, I haven't mentioned that so far, just to digress away from that for a second, but it's important I mention it for any of you that are playing. It's all rhythm. This is all rhythm. Everybody thinks about the notes, the scales, and yeah, but actually it's rhythm is the most important thing. Timing, phrasing, because you don't have to have anything going on vocabulary-wise. Albert King's vocabulary is very small, but any of us that play in this room right now would just sound like children next to him if you found yourself on stage, because the command of timing, phrasing, and tone as well. Tone, it's like timing and tone. If you've got that, then the notes don't really matter that much. Then you've just got 12 notes to try and hit at the right moment. Do you know what I mean? But it's timing. So that's why you can play, you know, not very... than it is because of the timing, not because there's like lots of crazy scales or something, you know. So I should just mention that, just to digress away from that. But other than that, it's just listening to the great players. It's all there for the taking. You know, you can find it and try and mash it up, and then yeah, timing, phrasing, and a good tone. So we had a question over here as well, all right?
Well, when you were talking about the scales and stuff, how did you learn, or do you still learn not to play the wrong notes?
Yeah. I mean, at some point, well, there isn't really any wrong notes. There's only unintentional ones, as they say. There's a big difference between that, you know? So, again, it just every time it comes back to your ear, you know? I know which note's I know what it's gonna sound like if I play it, for the most part. And if I play a wrong note, it's because I've slipped up from a technical perspective and found myself in the wrong place, but almost invariably there's a right note, either to the left or the right of the wrong note. I mean, it's that close. There's always one better. So, but here's what I say about wrong notes and improvising and things like that. Greatness really lies, and this is the greats, it lies in how small can you make the gap between what you wanted to do and meant to do and what you actually did as an improviser, you know? So the smaller you can make that gap, the greater you are. The more instant access you have to your ideas that can immediately be translated through the instrument as an improviser. The smaller the gap, the greater you're going to be. And so it's all about trying to close that gap, really, whatever it takes. And for me, like, at this point, it's not about even being able to play more notes. I'm actually interested in playing less notes and like refining it down. And we all, I'm guilty of it. I get carried away and you get into it, and then you're like, what a load of nonsense you're playing there. What a load of bullshit. Say something, you know? Say something. And then I start trying to think of those, like, in fact, Joost had one up for years in his living room, and it's a famous Picasso black brush picture on white canvas. You know, it's just black pen. It's like the donkey one, you know. But anyway, it's like you see those great paintings that are just a few brush strokes, and there's a picture. And it's like, that's what I'm into. You can get it down to that, like, where you can just go, oh, it's a tree, you know. So, yeah, at that point, I don't know, it just kind of wanting to say something and make a statement with it. And it's, again, back to timing and things like that. So, yeah. Oh, and one other thing I should want to point out, before anybody else asks another question, so I've been thinking about this a lot, and I did a clinic a while back for a whole weekend, and like everybody was really kind of concerned with the idea of getting better, as though there was some end goal to get to that they weren't reaching or would never reach, as though there is a finishing point of getting better, and that all of a sudden you're good now. And I'm like, that's such a modern world way of thinking about it. And I never thought about it like that. You need to enjoy, just enjoy doing it at the time. There is no better to get to. There is only being interested in the process. Does that make sense? It's not a risk-reward game like that. It is a pastime to enjoy. And if you and it seemed like almost everyone at this clinic was in America, but had forgotten. They were so cool. I've got to learn something new when I practice. And nobody was enjoying playing the guitar or playing music. And it's like, but why are you doing it? So that's really important to remember. There is no end game. There is only taking part in the process. So, yes, ma'am.
Don't you enjoy like learning things in guitar?
Of course, that's not, I think that I didn't make my point, right? Of course I enjoy learning, but that's the point, to enjoy learning it. But if you're only doing it with an end goal of knowing something more, I'm talking about the process of learning, and that is the process, not the end goal. There is no what can I learn to get better? I don't know. Whatever you enjoy playing, it's music and it's art. It's not. It gets thought about in some kind of like sport type way. You know, what can I do to impress somebody? Who cares? What would actually be impressive to most people is if you played a nice song to them. Do you know what I mean? You can really get caught up in this idea of, you know, and that goes into technique for technique's sake. And that's boring to me. I'd rather have a bit. And the other thing that it took me a long time to realize, and I especially realized it during COVID when I had no gigs for 18 months for the first time in 30 years. I mean, I hadn't not done a gig for a year since I was 13 years old. I've been, the whole thing for me is why it's almost weird to even sit here and just talk about guitar in isolation, and it's why I've not played that much, because that's not really what I do. But the whole process has always been about playing music with other human beings for me. So I learned, but I would go and listen to those records, and then, but the minute I decided I wanted to play this thing properly, I started a band. And I went to school for the new term in September of 1990. Said, I'm playing guitar, and I'd been messing around with it. And I said to my friends, I'm playing guitar, and one friend goes, I'll play bass, and another one said, I'll play drums. And from that minute, we went into, either the garage or the school rehearsal room or wherever we could get, the mate's farmhouse or whatever, and played together all the time, any hour that we could. And I learned to play music with other people. So I never played to backing tracks, and there was no YouTube lessons. Do you know what I mean? I'm probably like the last of the garage band generation to some degree, because it's so different now. Everybody's doing like online lessons, and please buy my True Photo. Please do. That saved my ass during the time when it was COVID. But the whole thing for me was about playing in a band. So even just to talk about the guitar as it's like, yes, I am a guitar player, but the reason I have this thing was to play music with other people, if that makes sense. And that's a really different perspective. So I'm not interested in impressing you, particularly with the guitar. I'm interested in making it sound good to me, and then hopefully you trying to play my ideas. Also, you can get rid of the idea of trying to impress someone and just enjoy playing music. None of that matters anymore, and then you're like, that feels good. So we can all get caught up in that. But it's really all my favorite guys as well. I listen to a lot of non-guitar music. They could have been great on whichever instrument they ended up getting. I love Oscar Peterson, the jazz piano player. He would have been a great guitarist if that's what the instrument that would have been available to him, or a saxophone or harmonica or whatever. They're beyond the instrument. They are music. They are not the instrument. So that's a really important way to think about it as well. And it all feeds into this enjoying it, enjoy the process. That's what it is. Yeah.
How many guitars do you have?
How many guitars do I have? Not that many, actually. Maybe 8, 9. Yeah.
I saw a guitar and a similar one. So.
Yeah, I have several. Mine are all kind of similar because I'm a Strat guy, but no, I travel. I only play one on a gig. I know the thing these days is to, the Joe Bonamessa different guitar on every song. But I always say, like, Oscar Peterson only played one piano on a gig. John Coltrane only played one saxophone on a gig. So this is, that's what I mean. I'm trying to play music, not guitar. So yeah, it's more like, in fact, I just sold a couple to get this one. I actually narrowed it down because I wanted another old one. So this one is 63. But it had a bad refinish, and so I was able to get a good price on it. And then my luthier friend in Florida put a nice finish on it for me. So it's a good way to like condense your collection into like one. I'd rather have one really great special guitar than three medium, you know.
Do you also play acoustic?
I have one acoustic guitar, and I rarely touch it. It's not my medium, you know. I'm an electric blues player, and it was the electric blues players that inspired me to play, you know. So I like these things too much as well, you know. So
The latest pedal you have on sale?
yeah, right there, yeah.
Is that on at the moment?
It is. It's on the left side. It's on almost all. I mean, obviously, I'm playing quite a lot quieter here than. It doesn't sound as drastic as that at concert volume, if you see what I mean. It's because I've got the guitar turned down a lot. So that's just the air, and then I'll put. It's quite a bit of boost in it. But these are very low. These are the original 1963 pickups. So this straight into a 100-watt amp is clean. So I usually leave the left side on most of the time, which is just the boost side, and I use the volume control like on a gig like constantly. So that's my game, you know, like where I have the volume control. And actually, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I'm not really a tinkerer with, like, once I'm happy with the pedals and the amps, and you know, but like I've just been on a mission to find the right volume pot, because the original one seized, you know, as they do after whatever they're rated for, 10,000 turns, and in 60 years somebody's turned that up and down a lot of times and they just lock. And apparently you can fix them, but the old pots sound the best. They sound different. I know this is crazy stuff, but when you've played them for 30 years, sometimes you can hear these things. But not only do they sound different, they also have a different, what they call taper, you know? So like, I want to know what amount of gain, more than volume, you know, I use it like a gain control, I have, and so really it's difficult to find a pot that has the same taper as the old ones, so that you can get the same control that I'm used to, you know. So I finally found one that's pretty close, not as good as the original pot, but the problem is like people want like $500 just for an original pot, which could again break at any second. You don't know how many turns it's had on it, right? So it's like, I'm going on tour, I'm taking one guitar, I need a brand new volume pot that's not going to die, you know, in the next 2 weeks. So I found one that, you know, so you can really. Excuse me. But you know, it's like a very gradual turning, that's more linear. This is really for the guitar nerds, but it's more of a linear part, not completely linear, it's called a 30% taper. And so the modern ones are 10% taper, so they immediately turn down a lot. As soon as you go from like 10 to 9, everything goes. But I want to be able to have loads of shades of different amounts of overdrive by just using my volume. So yeah, it's that.
Have you got your delay on today?
Yeah, it's just delay and reverb. If I turn the reverb off, you can hear the delay. That's always on. So it's a bit longer than a slapback. I don't know how long it's, probably 170 milliseconds or something. But it's like a back wall. So I always have the same back wall space for my guitar to sit in. But then once you put the reverb in, it kind of smears it all out and it just gives you. Actually, not much gear talk from you guys today. In America, everybody's supposed to know about the gear. You want to do some gear talk?
Go ahead. So somebody has to ask, real vintage or custom shop?
Good question. Both have their, places. I like real vintage the most. That's why I got another old one. I have a 61 that I've had for 25 years nearly, and then I just got the 63. Because there's a vibe, and they do have a certain sound. But they're quirkier. It depends if you want to put up with it, like... There's a bit more of a fight in the old ones, and like the strings come off the side of the neck, and like this tune is really stiff and this one's really slack, and so it's more funky. I kind of like that, I mean, it's like it's the difference between like I don't know, like Starbucks or somebody in a little Italian coffee shop making it. Like it's like it's fine if you need a coffee. Starbucks is fine, but it's not. The overall experience can be a bit richer with something. But the other thing is, not all vintage guitars are great either. So I always say the best guitars I've ever played happen to have been vintage guitars, but it's not because they're not all good. It's just but the very best. I mean, I just played David Grissom. Great, amazing guitar player from Austin, Texas. I was at his place a few weeks ago and played his 1959 ES3 35, and it just completely set any benchmark in terms of how good a guitar can be. That's like my new bet. His 59 335. Yeah, and I mean I won't be getting one. That's a lot of money, you know what I mean? And I'm not in the. That's why I got this one as needing fixing up, because they're crazy money, But everybody's got some stuff they can sell, you know what I mean? So it depends how many. Do you want a lot of guitars or do you want a few good ones, So, so my favorite guitars have all been vintage ones, but there's a lot of just beat up old crappy ones as well. So you got to find the one that speaks to you, And this is 1 year younger, 13 months younger than my other Strat, my 61, borderline 62, and they couldn't be more different. In 1 year, everything's changed. Not better or worse, just different, So they're totally different vibe. But I'm enjoying this at the moment. I'm getting to know it, So, yeah.
Just aside, why is it that guitar players are into gear and vintage and stuff? You never hear piano players talking about, can you...
Oh, well, I don't know about that. We'd have to get Johnny in here, but if you were to bring in a Bosendorfer with the extra octave flap on the bottom,
Oh, yeah, okay.
I reckon a few piano players would be pretty excited to play that, So, but it's true. I asked my saxophone playing friend about this. I'm like, do whole players get into which reed is the best and all that? And he's like, yeah, a little bit, but and like I say, they just play the same saxophone all night. They don't bring 7 different color saxophones to the gig. Here's my newest saxophone. I think it's because of the nostalgic element for us all. Certainly this is a fairly mixed sex room by a lot of my standards. It's
I was just
usually
thinking there's 3 women.
right. That's a pretty good representation by the there's usually lucky to be any estrogen in the room at all. It's like. Guitars, cars, so there's a kind of nostalgic tool element. I mean, I think that's from we can get deeply into the evolutionary psychology of getting good at playing something, but this is probably some deep-rooted. This is the hunter's weapon. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't have to do that anymore. So this is my spear, or my, do you know what I mean? It's so there's an attraction to things like that for guys, and definitely. And this is generally a much more male pursuit, playing the guitar for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? It's just clearly it is. So there's something to do with that as well, for sure. That you get into the tools, man. You know, power tools,
Oh yeah.
cars. You know, yes, eh?
Yeah, so you have a vintage guitar,
Yeah.
but then,
Brand new, yeah.
so what about amps? You also have amps?
Yeah, I always have a super reverb. So I started. Here's the other thing with the gear. I like nice gear. I made my first 2 records and I owned 1 guitar and 1 amp. So it was never about the gear in that regard. I needed the best thing I could get to make music. Again, it goes back to, it's not about playing guitar. So I already had an active, visible career in music when I owned 1 guitar and 1 amp. Now there were good ones. It was a 61 Strat and a 64 Super Reverb. And I had 1 pedal, still only have 3. And so in that time I had 2 pedals, but 1 was the tuner. It's like I still have. And I made 2 records like that, you know, with just that stuff. So I played the Super Reverbs for years and years, and I have a 64 still in the UK, and I have a 66 in the US. But that's like driving a vintage car. That's different than the guitars, you know. And it's like that one, you gotta get the oil changed all the time. You gotta put new tires on all the time, and you know, there's a lot more maintenance. And so this, it has the same kind of inspiring, complex sound, but it's brand new. And I don't want to jinx anything, but since my buddy Eli rescued the company from the previous owners who'd gone in the wrong direction, I haven't had a single problem with the amp on tour. So that, to me, is worth. And again, people are like, oh, they're really expensive, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, this is a tool for my job, and I need the best tool I can get. But from a reliability point of view, from a consistency point of view, I've done tours and gigs with every model of Two-Rock amp. So I have my favorites, but you could just give me anything that they make currently, and it would sound 99% like me. So yeah, but I still love. In an ideal world, if I had more people to carry them around, or I could travel around with them easier, I'd probably have a Super Reverb still up there as well. But then if it blows up halfway through, I don't, it's not so much of an issue. But yeah, man. And the one piece of gear that nobody ever asks about is picks, which is fine, because everybody wants to know about the guitars and the amps. But that's what you're actually listening to. So I hold it sideways. There's the tone secret. It sounds fatter than the point. Versus. Yeah, so like 3/4 of the way around, which I don't know how. It turns out a lot of my other favorite guitar players, unknown to me at the time when I started doing it. Maybe it's a subconscious thing. It sounds right to me, you know what I mean? So you start doing it because it sounds more like your favorite players. But it turns out dozens of them do it as well. Stevie Ray did, Robin Ford, Mike Landau, all pick sideways. Or I don't know exactly how they hold it, but they don't use the point. But that's and the gauge of the pick and the material of the pick, all super important, that stuff, So devil's in the details, man. Everybody's like, oh, your amp sounds great. And it's like, you mean when I was playing through it, right? Because it doesn't make any sound by itself, And that is, I know it sounds kind of facetious to say that, but it's true. None of this, it doesn't exist. The music is not in it till you put it in there, or pull it out. Right? So that's what it is. It's you. It's in you,
Fingers? Do you also play
Yeah, all the time. I go back and forth. Yeah, I have two different ways actually. Sometimes it will go there. Or sometimes it goes like between those, and then you can so on and so on. But yeah, I do that quite a lot. And in fact, like talking about practicing, and it dawned on me the other night because I was sat there doing this. I didn't have a pick, and I just was sat on the couch at Yoast playing this. I didn't have a pick, and probably for about half an hour, I just played just with my thumb with the guitar unplugged. Now, is that practicing? It wasn't deliberately practicing, but I was doing just playing the guitar with a technique that I don't normally use, and as I did it, I got better at it. Do you know what I mean? That's how I practiced. It wasn't like a deliberate thing. It's like I just ended up sitting there, and it made me slower. So I had to do more bending and stuff with this hand. To, you know, so. It's the new, it's like West Montgomery type playing, which I've never really done, but I was doing it the other night for about half an hour, and I'm starting to get good at it, and I thought, yeah, I guess that's practicing, isn't it? I'm learning a new technique, but not because I was like, I have to have a new technique. It was because I didn't have a pick, but I wanted to play it, and I didn't want to get up and go in the other room and get a pick, so I ended up doing it. And the upside of that is, I can't do my normal muting that I would do with pick because there's a lot of muting going on with both hands to make the notes. See, when people talk about your tone and stuff, and oh, it's the amp, and it's like that. There's no, like, I make the notes sound big by what I do around them as well. You know what I mean? It's not just like, I'm like making the note speak by muting the other ones or doing this or doing that. You know, there's a lot that goes into the tone, and it is in your fingers, it's how you play the guitar. But doing that, so it starts, I'm like, oh, it's not as clean, you hear some more noise because I can't do my usual muting if I'm playing. So you start working on making it sounding better with a technique you've never used before and kind of hone it in. That's what I practice. Do you know what I mean? Like just something to make, how can I make this sound better than it already does? It's kind of cool, so I might start doing that a bit, you know, so it's like my new things. Yes?
Do you also play Bluetooth because without the cable?
No.
Last year I got plugged.
No, because it changes the response of the guitar, so it makes it, the controls work differently because what it does is it buffers the impedance of the guitar right away. And it's weird. So in fact, I actually only like the longer cable. I don't like too short of a cable. It sounds too harsh. So the longer the cable makes it warmer and more vintage sounding. Silly things, but you know, once you are way down the rabbit hole, you have to be aware of it. So yeah, you were trying to ask a question there, mate.
Well, since making the tone is so important to you. What do you look for when you set up the guitar? Like straightness of the neck, nut height, or action, all the
yeah,
things?
Yeah, especially on a Strat. For some reason, they're super finicky with the setup, and then they just come together. It might take me lots of tiny adjustments, and then it all just comes together, and I'm like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
So this one I've still been tweaking a little bit because since it got refinished and stuff, I had it refretted as well.
What's the fret size?
Really important is I need tall frets. These are 6100s or Jessica 57-110.
Yeah.
I am lost without big frets. I hate small frets. I don't mind the narrow tall ones as well, but I feel like I have more control on that. So that's a super, super important thing for me. Maybe the most, from a setup point of view, is I like the tall frets, because then you can use heavier strings and get hold of the string. So. So I really want to be able to hold the string.
You also have high action.
Yeah, I mean medium high. I guess it would be high to most people. I've seen higher. It's not like slide, but it's pretty high. And heavier strings. That was just the wisdom when I was a kid. You know, everybody was playing Strats with heavy strings. Stevie Ray, School. And I just got used to it. And actually during COVID, I put some lighter strings on, some 10s, and it felt fine for sitting around at home, so I didn't have any gigs. And then the minute I got out on a gig with a set of 10s, I'm like, woo, all over the place. So I just like that. I like some pushback, you know what I mean? I like some fight. If it's too easy to play, I don't get any feeling out of the guitar. I need to. So it hurts sometimes, you know, but no pain, no gain, right? So yeah, 11 to 52, big frets, big action. Yeah, you know, depends on your idea of what high action is, but that's definitely in the high camp. On a Strat, trim all the way down, 5 springs. You know, I'm not doing like Van Halen, and it works. So you can do a little. Yeah, that's it. Oh, and I'm probably like a little bit more relief than I should. So most guitar techs, if they do something for me, they'll straighten out and then I put it back again.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because I feel like I can get under the string more down here. I don't like the action to go like low to high, like a straight line. So putting a bit of relief in the neck gives me a bit more action height in the middle of the guitar. And it feels like less like a triangle and more like it makes it just feel like juicier. Yeah. Just a little bit of, and I like that kind of juicy. Even with the heavy strings, you can kind of get them to feel sort of spongy. You know? There you go. How are we doing for time? Is that probably?
This is about 9 minutes. So if people want to,
I could do with go and run to the toilet actually after all that. But, and then we could finish up some questions or something like any more questions. So just give me a moment.